Merry Christmas. Today is Christmas Day and wanted to wish you guys a happy holidays. And I thought today's topic would be very relevant to the holiday here. And it's the concept of tithing or giving to charity. And I wanted to share with you guys how it's impacted me and how I sell and how my results in selling. So I really got this idea from an inspiration of mine, Tony Robbins, who's impacted my life in a great way. He tells a story of when he was just starting out his career. He was about his mid or early 20s, and he was down to his last like $20. And he went to this all-you-can-eat Mexican place called El Torito in, I think, somewhere in LA. And he went in there with the intention to stuff his face, to basically stuff himself before hibernation in the wintertime. And so he did it. He went in there, got a bunch of food, stuffed himself, and as he was walking out, he noticed this little boy who was eating with his mother. His mother was this beautiful woman, and he saw this little boy. But what really caught his eye was this little boy who was just being so attentive, so present, so charming and careful and chivalrous with his mom that he was touched by this little boy. And he just got the spontaneous urge to walk up to this little boy and take the rest of the money that he had in his pocket, all the money he had in his name, and plop it down on the table and give it to the little boy and basically offer it up to the little boy to take his mother out to lunch, because he just was so touched by how, I guess, courteous and charming this little boy was. And the little boy was like, "No, you can't do that." And Tony was like, "Yes, I can. I'm bigger than you." And he said it in a joking way, and the little boy started laughing. Anyways, the point of the story is that, Tony Robbins was in a very tough point in his life, and he plopped down and gave the rest of the money that he had to this little boy. And he didn't have any ulterior motive. He wasn't trying to impress the woman, and he walked out. And he said, as strange as it was, that was... he had never felt so abundant in his life up until that point before. And he had, even though he had no money to his name, he felt zero scarcity. And what was interesting was, he stopped, he wasn't really worried about himself so much. He just felt this freeness and this openness. And he knew, he had to hustle, and he had to kind of figure it out and kind of pay his bills, but he knew he would figure it out, right? And it just so happened that up until that point, he had lent his friend some money, about $1,000, and he was hitting up his friend like every day, trying to get his friend to pay him back. And his friend wasn't responding. But after this incident happened, where he plopped his money down to the little boy, and within about a week or so, he got a letter in the mail. He opened it up, and it happened to be from his friend who was ignoring him. And his friend had wrote him a check for $1,000, like $200, and said, "Hey, sorry, I've been, ignoring you. I've been really feeling bad, and here's the money that you lent me, plus interest as well." And this, absolutely floored Tony. And basically, from that incident, took that to mean to give when you don't have anything to give. And, that story really impacted me because it taught me to do the same. It really ingrained and forced me to look at myself and think to myself to really develop this habit of tithing. So I wanted to share with you guys how it's impacted me over the past 4 or 5 years or so, since I've been doing this fairly consistently. And number one is that it's helped and trained me to help solve for a problem. So I think the big challenge that most salespeople have, especially when they're beginning, is that they're focused on making the sale and making the commission, as opposed to focus on helping the customer solve a problem. And if you've been following this blog for any amount of time, you understand that sales is really about going out and solving a problem. So by just giving to charity consistently, it started training me to look for problems that I could potentially solve for. The second point is that this, over time, this also made me into a more helpful person. Um, I don't mean to say this to brag or anything like that. It's not about that, but really just want to share with you guys that I think, I know that by giving charity and by tithing, it's helped make me more generous of a person by definition. So I think that's translated into the way that I deal with people and the way that I work with prospects, and that nowadays I'm more just focused on their challenges and their issues and the problems that they're trying to solve, as opposed to just making a commission. There's a lot of tactics out there in phraseology where people will tell you to phrase your verbiage in a way where your language is focused on the prospect, where you're using more yous than me's or I's, which is helpful. But I think what tithing has done is it's allowed me to naturally develop that and be more naturally focused on the prospect and how I could help the other person, if that makes sense. So the third point is, I think it's also helped me develop an abundance mindset. It's no secret that in sales, it can be tough, it can be stressful, especially when you're going through a rough patch and you're just kind of worried about whether you're going to be able to make the next deal or not. I think by the practice of tithing, in fact, again, I know just by helping someone less fortunate than us, it's helped teach me to have more of an abundance mindset, meaning that when, even if I might be going through a challenging time, or if I'm not going through a challenging time, if I'm able and willing to take a portion of the money that I have and give that to someone who's in a tougher position, it teaches me, one, there's always more than enough, and two, there's always people out there that are in less fortunate of a situation as you. So it's taught me to be more grateful. It's taught me to have more of an abundance mindset. And I think coming from that space of abundance, that's translated well into my interactions with prospects as well, because, no one wants to deal with a salesperson who, feels desperate, right? So, and then the last point, number 4, I do believe in karma, that we get back what we give. So, although, this isn't necessarily the sole reason to do this, I do believe, the more we give, the more we receive. So, I hope you got value out of this blog post. I hope you got value out of this video. Please read the full blog post, as there's often more details and nuances included in the actual writing. I kind of just riff off these videos. Anyways, have a great holidays. Have a wonderful kickoff to 2020, and hope you guys crush it, all right?